If you were emotionally neglected as a kid, you may be extra prone to direct your romantic energy toward people who are not with you. It's called limerence, and it's kind of an obsessive infatuation with people you cannot have. And it's a glitch in the way that we develop neurologically, and it can have terrible consequences for you and for the people who actually do love you. But our culture has a lot of fancy words and window dressing to make this addiction to escaping real life responsibilities through fantasy romance into something healthy and okay and justified. My letter today is from a man I'll call Carter, and he writes, "Hi, Anna. I'm a 35-year-old man, and I've been with my wife for about 15 years. Oh, I'm doing the math, okay. I've got my fairy pencil, and I'm going to circle things that I want to come back to on a second reading, but let's read through Carter's letter and see what's going on. All right, he says, when my 6-year-old son was born, I learned about male postpartum depression the hard way. In other words, I didn't know men could go through such an experience, and I was woefully unprepared for the mental barrage and pressures of becoming a father. Lots of things came up from my past, specifically around my relationship with my alcoholic father. While my relationship today with my father is very good, we had a very troubled relationship when I was a teenager and through my young adult life, and I don't think he'll ever fully understand the impact his alcoholism has had on me. During this period, shortly after my son was born, I had an emotional affair with a woman at work, to put it bluntly. I was depressed and in need of intimacy, and she told me things I wanted to hear. I hated becoming a father, but in the moment of weakness, she told me that I was more than that. Looking back, it was all very clear that she abused our friendship and crossed boundaries. Through marriage counseling and therapy, I discovered a lot about myself that I work on still today. Through this experience, I became very untrusting, as I felt ashamed that I was taken advantage of and acted out of character. I haven't had many friends, especially female friends, for many years since this. In fact, I actively avoided making friends and socializing. These days, things are great. My relationship with my wife is great, and I'm taking care of myself through healthy habits and therapy. I'm making friends, both male and female, and it's been rewarding. In addition, I've challenged myself to do better. I learned how to get over my fear of water and learned how to swim as an adult. It had so many parallels to life itself and opened my eyes to the life I want to live. In this vulnerable process, I became friends with my female instructor. Over the months, we've become close, and this leads us to today. I feel very strongly for this woman, so much so that I recognize this as limerence. I constantly think about her and have intruding thoughts. I only wish to be friends, but sometimes my mind takes over and I get really frustrated with the unwanted thoughts. When we're together, we have wonderfully friendly conversations and connect very deeply. In fact, I would say that our friendship is growing and is very normal. Through therapy, I've discovered that my need for friendship and connection outside of my marriage is very important to my mental well-being. My wife is also supportive of this, but I can't help but be distrusting of myself and others as I develop new close bonds, especially with women. My questions are, how can I put aside limerent thoughts and move forward in having a successful friendship with another woman? After what I've gone through, it sometimes seems impossible. I consider myself sensitive, but lately I've found that once I've let someone in my circle, they're in. I feel empowered to set boundaries and communicate effectively, yet my thoughts cause self-doubt. I'm not sure which I trust less, myself or other people. I fear losing friendships. I know this. It's painful to find someone new to love in a non-romantic way, because the idea of losing them is also painful. I fear that one day she'll find a romantic partner and ditch our friendship due to being incompatible. I know I can't predict the future, and so being present and enjoying what I have will allow me to live my life without fear. It's just easier said than done when the fear of what could happen is always there. Thank you for your time. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, Carter. Yes, you can have my thoughts. I'm really worried about you, Carter. You seem to be kind of dissociated. You seem to be talking a really good talk and walking a completely different walk. So I don't know if you're going to like what I have to say here. It's a bit of tough love, but let's go through what you told me. All right, 35 years old. You've been with your wife for 15 years, so you were 20 when you got together. That is very young. And you have a 6-year-old, so you would have been 29 when your kid was born. You learned about male postpartum depression. Okay, sometimes you use these concepts or psychology words, and maybe that's what it is, I don't know. But you got depressed when your son was born because you were freaked out about being a dad. Sometimes I think plain language would be a little bit easier to work with here than dressing it up as male postpartum depression. And then the other thing I notice you do is you deflect when you're kind of doing something that hurts other people. You deflect all of it onto other people. So I also had alcoholism in my parents, and I know what a big deal it is and how it affects stuff. So I do get what you're saying. You said that you were unprepared for the mental barrage and pressures of becoming a father, and this stuff about your own dad came up. That makes sense. Lots of things came up from the past, especially around relationship with alcoholic father. While my relationship today with my father is good, that's amazing. We had a very troubled relationship when I was a teenager and through my young adult life. And I don't think he'll ever fully understand the impact his alcoholism has had on me. Yeah, I think it's very rare that other people understand the way they hurt us, especially parents who let us down, and especially alcoholics. By the way, I've just noticed limerence tends to be linked. Almost everybody who writes in with limerence has an alcoholic parent. Not everybody, it's not a strict rule, but you fit the pattern. But for you to get better from this, it would be so important for you to bring the focus into your own behavior and thinking. Because I just keep hearing you being dissociated about it, and I'm really wondering about your therapist, who I can't help but wonder if that person is enabling you a bit with rhetoric. All right, so during this period shortly after my son was born, I had an emotional affair with a woman at work. You said, to put it bluntly, I was depressed and in need of intimacy, and she told me things I wanted to hear. And I'm not sure what you mean by sometimes when people say intimacy, they mean closeness, and sometimes they mean sex. And I know that, when a woman has a new baby, she may not be able to give you either one for a while because it's pretty intense. And so you say this other woman at work told you things you wanted to hear, and you hated becoming a father. Woo! You hated becoming a father. That's an alarming thing to say. I just kind of want to put a big circle around that. You hated becoming a father. That's very intense. And I guess you've talked about this with your wife and, the therapist, whatever, but your wife, that's so heavy. And I think that would be a very hard thing to hear, that the father of your child hated becoming a father. Don't let your kid ever hear that, okay? So yeah, you hated becoming a father, but in that moment of weakness, she told you that you were much more than that. Well, everybody is much more than a parent. I'm a parent, and I'm more than that too. I'm not really, I don't totally understand that. Maybe you're using euphemisms or something. I think you're saying you needed it validated, that she helped you see that you were also an attractive man, and not just whatever your negative idea of fathers is, that they're boring or not attractive, not sexy. I don't know. Looking back, you say it was all very clear that she abused our friendship and crossed boundaries. It sounds like you had a very mutual thing. I can't really tell. So she flirted with you. You were having an emotional affair with her. It takes two, and this is kind of what I'm talking about, where the dissociation, where you feel like other people did this to you. But as a person who has an extremely serious commitment of raising a small child together with your partner, you having an emotional affair at all, that's, you crossed the boundary. Like what she did, if she were writing to me, I'd be like, don't you even think of, flirting with some guy at work who's married. And if he has a kid, red alert, do not do that. That's a terrible transgression. And it threatens the marriage, and it threatens this, a marriage is kind of like a shaky thing enough, and a marriage with children, it's so important that the parents are able to parent that kid well and, not pass on the trauma to another generation. I realize not all marriages will last, but you don't go in and try to wreck somebody's marriage. So if this woman had asked me, I would have totally given her a piece of my mind. But you are equally responsible, even more so because you're the one who took a vow to your wife. So very, very important that you take responsibility for that. You shouldn't be hanging out with somebody who talks to you like that. And I urge you, try not to just displace all the responsibility for this. It's a pattern I'm kind of seeing here, and I think that you can turn this around if you can stop blaming other people for the places where you're crossing the line here. So through marriage counseling and therapy, I discovered a lot about myself that I still work on today. And through this experience, I became very untrusting as I felt ashamed that I was taken advantage of and acted out of character. So just in the spirit of tough love, I'm going to just say, were you taken advantage of, or, did you just kind of become attracted to this transgression to feel like you were something more than whatever negative idea a dad is to you? You hated being a dad. You wanted something else. You say you acted out of character, and out of character is a funny phrase that we use because everything that we do is actually in character. Our character is complicated, right? It's complicated, and like most of the time we are the good people we like to present ourselves to be, but in reality sometimes we're not the good people that we like to present ourselves to be, and that's also part of our character. And it's kind of the part that most needs your attention, is the part of your character that crosses lines, that makes mistakes that could shatter everything. So it's a very important part of your character. So you said, I haven't had many friends, especially female friends, for many years since this. You say, I actively avoided making friends and socializing. So that's like, you felt traumatized by the experience, I think you're saying. These days, though, things are great. My relationship with my wife is great. I'm going to challenge you on that. I don't think it's great. I think it's great because she is in a lie. She's being lied to. She doesn't know that you actually are in love with another woman. So I would say your marriage is not great now. It's in great jeopardy. I'm going to call you on it, okay? You're telling yourself, it's great, everything's great. I'm taking care of myself through healthy habits and therapy and risking shattering your marriage. And I'm making friends, both male and female, and it's been rewarding. In addition, I've challenged myself to do better, and you learn to swim and overcome your fear of water. So in this vulnerable process, I became friends with my female instructor. Over the months, we've become close, and this leads to today. All right, you became close to your female swim instructor. No, well, here, you said later that you think it's a normal friendship. I don't at all think it's a normal friendship. It's normal for men and women to be friendly, especially in groups or couples or something. But if you're having one-on-one relationships where you're madly in love with the woman, it's not a friendship. So you said, I feel very strongly for this woman, so much that I recognize it's limerence. Limerence is this obsessive love for somebody you can't have. And limerence is an extremely dangerous and addictive fantasy state that can suck your soul. It can ruin your existing relationships. Like, this is very serious. It's not, I don't know, you seem dissociated from the seriousness of the situation. So I constantly think about her and have intruding thoughts. I only wish to be friends. Okay, this is where you're dissociated. I don't think you only wish to be friends. You constantly think about her and have intruding thoughts, presumably of desiring her. So I don't think you wish to be friends. That's like this other story you tell maybe to the world. You said, but sometimes my mind takes over and I get really frustrated with the unwanted thoughts. So your mind your mind is you. Your mind is you. You are the person who has those thoughts. It's not overtaking the good you. This is all you, the part of you who's trying to be faithful, who's trying to, live life in a way that you feel you can present to the world and feel proud of. And then also you is the one who's just totally, at the edge of a cliff right now. So when we're together, we have wonderfully friendly conversations and connect very deeply. All right, for that very deep connection, this is more like the red alert is going off. And you said, I would say that our friendship is growing and is very normal. And I'm just like, no, that's not a friendship. It's not normal. And if it's growing, I think your marriage is in grave danger. Okay, you're writing to me about this. So some part of you knows this, but you seem to be dissociated from yourself. So through therapy, this therapy comes up a lot. And whenever you're talking about therapy, this is like the good talk that you do about this stuff. So I don't know if your therapist is sort of validating that this is normal, and that's possible. I think that, you can find all kinds of therapists, and some of them will validate polyamory or, very, very permissive sexual mores. So if that's where you and your wife have agreed it's a good place for the marriage to go, then that would be one thing. But from what it sounds like, no, it's not. You went through a lot of depression about what happened before. It shattered your confidence for years. How is this different? I don't know. Maybe because it hasn't broken down yet, or your wife hasn't found out yet, or you didn't get left yet. I don't know. You haven't said. There's this weird sunshine thing here that is flitting through a very dark story. So through therapy, I've discovered that my need for friendship and connection outside my marriage is very important to my mental well-being. Sure, but probably not being very close to women you can't stop thinking about. My wife is also very supportive of this. No, she's not. But I can't help but be distrusting of myself and others as I develop new close bonds, especially with women. My questions are, how can I put aside limerent thoughts and move forward in having a successful friendship with another woman? I have bad news for you, Carter. You can't. You can't. Once you're limerent, this is a addictive state. There's an aspect of delusion to it. It's something that you can't have. It's not a normal friendship. And if it's gone on as long as it has here, to the point that you're writing to Crappy Childhood Fairy, you already have your answer. Like, it's not a friendship. And very few people who get limerent can just sort of snap out of it and have a normal friendship. One test that I would give to you is if you were totally honest about your feelings for this woman and that you can't stop thinking about her, you have intrusive thoughts, and you're limerent for her, and you want to be friends with her. Does she have a problem with that? If you can't be honest about what's really going on, well, there it is. A toxic relationship is one that you have to lie about to the person who trusts you the most, to a person who with you is raising a little child and is counting on you pretty heavily right now, who I assume would be devastated to find out what your thought process is. Limerence is an escape. Let me cut to the chase here. Limerence is an escape from reality. So I think you're still maybe resisting the responsibility of being a dad and the responsibility and commitment of being in your marriage. Now, people do leave marriages and split custody, or have less than full custody. And that could be where you go with this, so that you're free to be friends, as you say, with other women, very close friends, in a way that doesn't threaten your marriage and that basically leaves you free to have sex with them if that's what you want, or fall in love, or have a relationship. I feel like that's where you kind of want permission to go. But I don't think that's the agreement you have with your wife. And I wouldn't recommend it, especially like you as a kid of an alcoholic. So for those of us who grew up with alcoholics, like actually being close to people and making commitments has a strange, uncomfortable, alien, imprisoning feel for it sometimes. I know what you're talking about. I had kids later than you, so maybe I had more time to adjust. And I was single a lot longer than you, so I had time to adjust, and I had time to really want it. So that may be why by the time I had kids, I never had any doubt about it. But lots of people do. It's not like everybody has to do the Hallmark card version of it's the best thing that ever happened. And not every person feels like that. It is a struggle for people. So there is a way out if that's what you really want. But if you want to stay in, I'm going to talk to you, assuming what you actually want is to stay married. You got to cut off all contact with limerent people for whom you're limerent. It's an addiction. It's sort of like heroin. And if somebody were doing heroin, it just wouldn't be possible for them to keep doing heroin. And could I just get to where I could use it normally, just a little bit at a time? Or could I just hang out with all the people who use heroin while they're on heroin and not use it myself? It's just not like that. It's one of those things that once it's got hold of your mind, it can be very, very hard to shake loose. And if you're serious about shaking it loose, you have to do every single thing possible. So first you break off contact. then you stop thinking about them. You don't write letters about them. You know, I use the daily practice. The daily practice is where you can pour every single thought. We write the fearful and resentful thoughts. I have fear I'm never going to see this person again. Fear they were the only person I can ever love. Fear they're the only person I understand or ever want. Fear I don't want to do what I'm doing in my life. So all this stuff goes on paper. If you want to learn that technique, it's always down in the description section. I have a free course. I talk about it a lot. People who watch my videos have heard about it many times, or they're already doing it. Like thousands of people do it. But it's a way you can get free of the thoughts that bother you and get back to your real self. If your real self wants to be married and parent and raise your son, you got to just get away from this woman. This is a very dangerous situation for you. So you said, I consider myself sensitive, but lately I've found that once I've let someone in my circle, they're in. Well, that's not true. We can break up with people. You can too. You don't have to make a big speech about it. You can just say, you know, I've had a great time talking to you, but I think this is not going to work for my life. So see you later. You can learn swimming from somebody else. You say, I feel empowered to set boundaries and communicate effectively, yet my thoughts cause self-doubt. This is like, I feel empowered, the word empowered, boundaries, communicate effectively. It all sounds like happy talk to me because actually you're in danger, not like danger is the opposite of empowered, I think. Setting boundaries that you're in love with somebody who you are not supposed to be in love with, and communicating effectively. I assume you're not telling the woman how you feel about her and you're not telling your wife. So that's what I mean. I just think that's like this front you're putting up. And then you say, but my thoughts cause self-doubt. It's not two different people. These are your thoughts. This is the way you present yourself and the way you actually think and feel. And you present yourself in the good way because you don't want people to leave or freak out. And I understand that. And you get to that where I fear losing friendships. I know this. It's painful to find someone new to love in a non-romantic way. So it's a little weird, like I love her, but in a non-romantic way. I'm not buying it. You love her in a romantic way, or this wouldn't be an issue. And when you make friends with people outside your marriage, I don't know. I have like really good long-standing friends and I love them. And some of them are men and none of them are a threat to my marriage. And I hang out with them a lot, mostly in the companionship, you know, like with my husband present, sometimes not. Some of my women friends I see on my own. Some of my closest friends are the people I work with in Crappy Childhood Fairy too, and I hang out with them. And I love each of my friends. When a friendship ends, sure, it's sad, but it's totally different than a romantic ending. It's not like, yeah, it's different. And I'm just hearing, I don't know, I think you're trying to pretend this is a friendship. So you say you fear that one day the swim instructor woman will find a romantic partner and ditch our friendship due to being incompatible. So my dude, that's love and jealousy. That's not friendship. So my friends, I really hope that they find love. I'm so excited for them to find love. I'm not threatened when they do. That's what a friend is. A friend is somebody, you know, your friends want the very best for you and they want the best for you. So if she were to find a romantic partner, that would be really great. So that's how I know you're kind of lying to yourself about the nature of this. You said, I know I can't predict the future, and so being present and enjoying what I have will allow me to live my life without fear. I don't know, that sounds like a bunch of words. I don't really know what that means. I think that the fear you have is because of romantic attachment. It's just easier said than done when the fear of what could happen is always there. Yeah. So you wanted my thoughts, and I you know, those were pretty harsh, I know. But I think your marriage is in grave danger, and if you want to save it, I encourage you to take my advice and stop all contact with this limerent person. And the therapy sounds like it could be helpful to you, but I'm really questioning why your therapist hasn't called you out on this yet. All right. If you're not sure if this is limerence, I've got a PDF called Signs of Limerence, and you can read it and see what I suggest you do about it. And that list of the signs of limerence, you can download right here, and I will see you very soon.